Hello and welcome everyone. This is your astrology forecast for new moon solar eclipse in Aquarius. And this is eclipse season. We are already in eclipse season because eclipses are very powerful events, cosmic events that have the power to get us back on the track if we have been misled or if we have taken some wrong turns or if we got lost somewhere. Eclipses get us back on the track, even if that may seem uncomfortable or even if that may seem in some way intense. Well, eclipses are intense. They are like supercharged energy, and their impact is felt 4 to 6 weeks before and 4 to 6 weeks after their exact date. They are already there. It's already eclipse season. So this may have been something we've all been feeling, like some hunches or like, some deep feelings of that something has got to change, that something is about to happen. Those feelings that we have. Well, eclipses are that period of time when big life-changing moments are happening, life-changing connections and disconnections, goodbyes and hellos, deaths and rebirths, transformations, big events, marriages, divorces, childbirth, death of a loved one. All these things are always somehow happening around eclipses in our life, especially when, personal planets are impacted by that eclipse. So this eclipse is happening on the 17th of February, and it's opening a new 18-year cycle. And this will be happening, these eclipses will be happening in Aquarius and Leo. So we are awakening that part of the cross within us. And it's very powerful. It's fixed energy. It's part of a great cosmic reset and the entrance into the age of Aquarius again. But I don't want to talk about this age of Aquarius in some commercial way now, and I won't go into that story. There is a book about the age of Aquarius that you can find on Moon Woman's website, and if you want to go deeper into all the symbology and decoding and reprogramming of what this time is about to install within us. And we are learning about the law of time and space pretty much now. And as we are entering the age of information, because Aquarius is information, it's data. So we are going into the age of information, and real information is information that leads us to transformation and initiation. Everything rest is trash information, and it doesn't feed our growth. So it's very important what thoughts prevail within us, what impressions we receive, where we spend time, who we spend time with, how we spend our time with people, how we spend our time alone. Very, very important. Food for soul and for thought, very, very important. So this age of information is bringing too much information. So there's a lot of information. That's why anxiety is expanding as well, because, we have overload and multitasking in every way, multitasking physically, mentally, emotionally, spiritually even. Multitasking, it's not real work. It's something that we do just for productivity and for having fake sense of calmness. But, this is a real deal now. It's real deal, and it's confronting us with what we've been escaping, either through overworking or through being overly lazy or through repeating something over and over. We are being confronted with something we are either running away from or suppressing or avoiding or ignoring. So we are going to see it in new light. And this new light will change our whole perception and perspective. And this is something that will be unfolding for the next 18 years, and especially in the next 18 months on a shorter scale. So the last time this same series of eclipses was active was back in February of 2008, then also August of 2008, January of 2009, and August of 2009. So between these years, between February, the beginning of 2008 and somewhere after the middle of 2019, what big things have been happening in our life. And these themes, Aquarius and Leo, I'm going to talk about it now in this video, about what Aquarius and Leo really are about and what they awaken in us, what they trigger in us. So we are all going to busy, to see that we are all so super busy, hyper busy. And the question is, okay, we are busy, but are we alive? Because somehow we confused busyness with being alive. And being busy is another way of escapism. Escapism is a theme of Pisces. And during this time, we have a strong activation of Pisces, even though it's new moon in Aquarius eclipse. But we have so much happening in Pisces, and the North Node, which is the moon's node, which is something that is responsible for eclipses, because if the moon is in conjunction with the north or south node, this is what we call eclipse. So the conjunction with the node, the meeting between the moon and moon's nodes are eclipses. So this north node is in Pisces. So it's not total eclipse. It's not really exactly together with the north node, but close enough to make this eclipse event and to trigger the awakening of this principle within us. But we have also very strong Pisces activation. So Aquarius, Pisces, Leo, very strong in Aries. We have a lot of water, fire, and air. But we miss some earth here. So it's very good to practice being grounded, to be more in nature, to get in touch with the energy of earth. And also, this same eclipse has been active just in a different polarity. That was when the north node was in Leo and south node was in Aquarius. But this also activated the same themes. And this was between August of 2017, January and February of 2018, and August of 2018 and January of 2019. So these years between 2017 and 2019 were also years when we had this same series of eclipses. And, we are about to see, when I now spoke about busyness and being busy instead of being alive, it's very important to see how this works and how are we keeping ourselves busy, either through scrolling, playing games, watching something, distracting ourselves always from the present moment. And, when did it become more important to be busy than to be alive? To have work instead of having friends? Or, to have money instead of having time? To have all tasks done instead of going out in nature and breathing with the sun? When did all of these things become more important? And so important that we lose ourselves because of that. So we are about to see where we are abusing our bodies. Pretty much important now to see where we are abusing our bodies. And we all do it to ourselves, but it's not like self-abuse in that way, like, oh, we are the ones hurting ourselves. Yes, we can say that, but now let's change the perspective and everything changes. And it's not me who is hurting myself. It's not us hurting ourselves. It could never be us. It could never be me, true me, hurting myself. I would never do that to myself. You would never do that to yourself, right? In reality. But this is what ego wants us to believe. The untreated ego. It wants us to believe that we are worst for ourselves, we are best for others. Or there are other ways to put it, to create our ego, to help to feed it with these, self-victim, self-pity, or self-grandeur, as I spoke before, because now we also have strong activation of Leo, of course, because we have eclipse in Aquarius. even though it's new moon, it's not opposing anything in Leo, but it's opposing the energy of Leo anyway. It has to be activated. This is the whole of Aquarius Leo polarity. They create a certain wholeness and unity. So let's change the perspective. It's not me hurting myself, and it could never be me. It's not us doing all of that abuse. It's our insecurities, our fears, our anxieties, our uncertainties. It's, our expectations and our needs. This is what is hurting us. This is what creates all the misunderstandings. This is very important to know. And it's not us or them. It's our artificial personality. And it's the personality that is run by these fears, insecurities, by all these things that are feeding us in a wrong way. And, we are all knocking for spiritual food. We are all hungry. We are all thirsty for that. But we knock at wrong doors. For example, when we see people running into alcoholism or into any bit of addictive behavior or addictive activities, this is where we see that same need for stepping into the subconscious realm, for getting a little peace. And this is, search for meditation. We are searching for that kind of peace, but we are searching in wrong places. So this eclipse will redirect us and put us right where we are supposed to be, even though we may not like it, because some things that we are addicted to may be taken away from us because they are not good for us. And we may believe that they are good for us, but now this is the process that something, has to be released. Even though it's new moon, it's about new beginnings, but it's eclipse. And eclipses bring inevitable and unavoidable and necessary endings and beginnings. And especially this one, because it's happening at the last degrees of Aquarius. And guess what? It's squaring its own ruler, Uranus in Taurus, last degrees of Taurus. Another fixed energy. So we have a lot of fixed energy here. And there is this connection with the earth through these last degrees of Taurus. And the square challenges us. The square, puts a pressure on us. The square is there to squeeze something out, to squeeze the essence out. So this square means that some transformation and awakening is happening through crisis. Through crisis perhaps with our bodies. That's why I'm talking about abusing our bodies, because we have Uranus in Taurus, and Taurus is our body as well. It rules the second house, our resources, our money, our bank account, our body that is temple, how we treat our body, how we feed it, how we maintain our body. So very, very important. And it's coming, as I said, through a crisis, through some challenge, through tests. And we are about to see how well we stand with who we are, and how much of human we are, and how much of that transhuman we are, artificial intelligence. Are we giving our power away to our fears, insecurities, expectations, and needs? Or do we know to discern between ourselves, our true selves, and our fears, insecurities, etc.? And it's very important to be as much as we can in nature. Why? Because I mentioned the age of information. And the more information we have, the less time we have. The perception of time changes, and time seems like it shrinked, because we have so much information, and this information is, putting a lot of pressure on space, and space affects time and space, and information, overloads this space. So then space twists the perception of time. And that's why it's very important to spend more time in nature, where we can get rid of unnecessary information, where we can remove data, where we can just, stretch ourselves, stretch the time, and have the perception of time that is stretched. Or maybe even some of us may have an experience of timeless existence, of timeless presence. And this can be achieved through meditation, through dancing, through getting into some kind of trance, through being silent, through just being, through learning that perhaps the greatest action now is non-action. The greatest way of battling is not to battle, but to learn to surrender as well, and to trust ourselves, to get serious about who we are, because it's no coincidence that this eclipse is happening just 3 days before Saturn and Neptune meet each other at 0 degrees of the first sign of the zodiac. This is big, big cosmic reset, big cosmic inhale. I spoke about this in 2026 video. You can find it on YouTube channel of Moon Omens. 2026 video, there are 2 parts. So there I talk a lot about Saturn-Neptune conjunction in Aries, and what is that going to bring, what is that going to take, what is that going to trigger within us in next couple of years. I mean, for many years to come, because they initiate a big new cycle. This is, the 0 degree of the very beginning of everything. And this is the sacred fire within us, the fire of initiation. So we are invited to spend more time in nature, to connect with those elements. And it doesn't matter where in nature, as long as the woods is the woods. It doesn't matter where you are, it carries the frequency of the woods. Or if you are near the lake, it doesn't matter which lake, it doesn't matter, you don't have to go somewhere, where is extraordinary. You can do it at your local place. You can do it anywhere where there is presence of nature, to reconnect with it and to recognize that the presence of nature is always within you. But because we forgot this, and we have troubles to reconnect with that part of us, that's why we have nature and an opportunity to be in nature and to evoke the memory of presence. Thanks to that, because this is where time and information and space, they lose their power, and this is where our ego as well loosens a little bit. It's like our muscles can relax, and we are about to see how hard it is for some of us to relax. And as I said, it doesn't matter where you are. Woods is the woods. It's the frequency of the woods, frequency of the lake, frequency of the sea, frequency of the grass, frequency of the tree, frequency of the sky. Just connect to some of it. We can charge ourselves in that way. Connect with the frequency of the sun. We can charge ourselves and recharge ourselves anytime, easily. It's very simple. So we are about to see that there is an equal level of intensity between wanting to be a victim, wanting to present ourselves as victims, and at the same time having completely opposite desire not to present ourselves as victims, not to be seen as victims, not to be seen in this way. And at the same time, as I said, there's a need to be seen as a victim. So this is, both is extreme, and it creates chaos. And, it brings to our field then those people who behave in this way, who at the same time have the desire to be victims and not to be victims. And this is what we do to ourselves when we have this need that is strong and that we cannot get away from. This is what creates the reality around us, and this is how we bring into our life people who are at the same time victims and abusers. But we are about to see that this is us. We are doing it to ourselves. And this is a delicate theme and subject, but I will say only this sentence, that we are all narcissists in someone's story. Because this term has lost its meaning completely. It's been so commercialized, it's been abused as well, and very much misinterpreted. And we have, again, the the twisting of ego thanks to these stories, because it's very, very delicate. And I will just say that we create reality, relationships, sceneries, all that we see. It's created through our subconscious realm and patterns and those invisible threads that we don't see. You know, these are our suppressed feelings, fears, insecurities. All these things participate in the creation of the web of life that we see around us and that we experience. That's why it's so important to work on our mental, emotional healing and cleansing, you know, to keep ourselves fresh so that we can recognize these patterns. Because if we don't, we continue forgetting, we continue falling into the same trap over and over again through blaming others. Again, this is Aquarius and Pisces very strongly. And it's one and the same entity, actually. My self-abuse, your self-abuse, or, you know, just abuse in general. It's not that someone who is hurting you. It is not that person who is hurting you. You know, it's what's hurting you and me are those same fears, anxieties, insecurities that we carry within us. You know, it's our needs, our goals, our expectations. You know, this is what is hurting us. Not someone there, but, you know, because we carry this within us. We carry this self-abuse, or we carry these fears, we carry these wounds, and then, because we carry them, they participate in the creation of what we see. It's very, very simple. So we are about to see that it's not someone there hurting us. It's not us either hurting ourselves. It's our fears, our insecurities, you know, our artificial personality. And Aquarius, you know, we are about to see, you know, big challenges and shifts between humanism and transhumanism. And I always say technology is not the problem. The way we use it is a problem. That's with everything. Ego is not the problem. How we use ego is the problem. You know, nothing is problem, but the way we use it is. You know, fear is not problem, but the way we interpret it, the way we handle it is the problem. So we are working out, we are learning, you know, and we are about to see what is hurting us. And this can bring us huge relief. It's not others, you know. When we abuse ourselves, when others abuse us, it's not you, it's your fears and desires, your attachments. You know, it's our attachments that keep us in that state of being. And when we release those attachments, when we release those fears, when we confront them, when we stop fighting them, when we start accepting and releasing, this is when the reality changes. This is when people fall away on their own. Just like, you know, the apple that falls from the tree when it's ready to be eaten, when it's done its process, that's how our needs, our fears, our insecurities, they just fall away from us when they are mature enough, when they are ready, and when we can finally let them go and grow. Because this is what brings transformation, and each eclipse is transformation. And eclipses are really events that cannot be avoided, as I said. So whatever happens now, know that it's really meant to happen. And because of this square with the ruler of this eclipse, with Uranus, Uranus is bringing shocks, surprises, sudden events, sudden shifts, awakenings, big turbulations, shake-ups. You know, something is going to kick us out of our comfort zone and to show us something very important that we need to see. And it's bringing us whole new realm, whole new reality. And, you know, just this is going to affect our relationship with children as well. And with that creative impulse within us, because Leo is also involved strongly in this story. Of course, Aquarius is the power of the people. Aquarius is communities, groups of people, friends, things that we do for the community, for greater good, our highest aspirations. So it's not only good for me, it's good for all around me. And Leo is, I am one. I'm doing this on my own. It's a subjective perspective, and this is objective. So Aquarius is objective observation. And we now have the power to objectively observe our fears, our insecurities, our desires, our traumas, all of these, our memories. We can objectively observe them. And this is where we can see that they rule us, not others. They are not to blame. Not even these fears are to blame. They are just to be recognized, to be acknowledged, because that's when they fall away on their own. And we know nowadays that what is happening, for example, with children, they are not children anymore. It's a very different kind of growing up than what we've been taught is childhood and what it means to be a child. We see that many kids are going now to certain programs, workouts, so many workouts and lessons and everything, because they don't have time for having fun. They are just put into some kind of work from very early age. They don't have freedom to experience being truly free. So where is that frequency of the children? It's really missing now. And because it's missing in us, grown-ups as well, grown-ups. So we know that, we don't need someone to teach us how to run and how to play when we are kids. And, it's natural that the kids are achieving that, organically, without any effort on their own. And there is desire in them still to do that, but they don't have choice. And that's why it's on those who are grown-ups to bring that spirit back again, together with the children, through being aware what's happening with the frequency of the children, really. And who is shaping kids today? It's a very important question. Who is shaping them? Are those their parents or their fears, their insecurities, their traumas? Who is raising those kids? I would say those kids are being raised by fears, insecurities, traumas, goals, expectations, needs. They're being raised by all these things, not by real freedom and love. And this is what we are missing big time. This is something that's been going on, of course, for a very, very long time. But we still have that memory of love and freedom together. And this is, Leo is very closely related to love and heart chakra. And Aquarius is that very strong mental energy and need for freedom. So we have the theme of freedom and love very, very strongly. And, we are here to see that nothing belongs to anyone, truly. And this square with Uranus in Taurus may remind us of that, because Taurus represents our possessions, what we consider our own. And this square from Aquarius may remind us that nothing belongs to anyone. That, that one for all and all for one. This is Aquarius Leo polarity. This is Aquarius 1 Leo, all for one and one for all. This is the higher expression of it, and also related strongly to Piscean energy. So these are the themes that we have now. And so nothing belongs to anyone. Just like, I see people are sometimes fighting over who said something, or who invented a certain joke, or who said some story. But, these are meaningless, meaningless conversations, because nothing belongs to anyone. Maybe that thought, that idea, that joke, that that plan was intended for someone else. But for example, if I was at that moment very close to the frequency of that information, it easily attaches to my mind and I read through it. So it reached me because I was also set up for that frequency. But it wasn't meant for me, perhaps. Perhaps I just picked it up from ether. This is Aquarius also, picking up thoughts from ether. So it's very important on which channel we are, because it's going to be strong. We are going to magnetize some wild and crazy ideas because of this Uranus in Taurus as well. And we are about to see what channel we are on mentally and emotionally. So it's not mine. Let's try to be more humble with this. Nothing is mine. Not this teaching, not this book, not this story, it's not mine. It's just something that came through me. And it came through me. All these words, all these stories, or everything that we are doing, it's not ours, it's coming through us. So this is Aquarius teaching us, that we have to be free from this. If we really want to experience freedom, we have to be free from the need for, being so possessive and stuck into what's mine, what belongs to me. Of course, we have to have things that belong to us, but I'm saying if we are strongly attached to it, if we are fighting for it, if we cannot let go of something, this is the problem. And we have to remind ourselves that whatever comes to me, maybe it came thanks to somebody else. Maybe it came thanks to because this person was next to me. Maybe this person magnetized something and it accidentally ended with me. So maybe I should be thankful and grateful for having this person next to me, because if this person wasn't next to me, this wouldn't come to me. And very, very important to know this. And because, when we are trying so hard to prove that something is ours, we are losing. And, nothing is mine. Nothing belongs to anyone, essentially. In a highest way of being, nothing belongs to anyone, truly. And in relationship, we should see that, we should have perception in our relationships with others. We are in this together. We are in this together, not against each other, not in some battle to see who is better than who does something better. We are not competing in relationship. We are building something together. This is what relationship is. This is what community is. It's not about, competing in that community, in the family, in relationship. We are not competing. We are in this together. And just as I spoke before, that allegory, that metaphor for, the orchestra or the band, where they all have to be their best. If they really want that concert to be perfect, they all wish for each other to be their best. They are not competing there because they know if they are competing, it's going to be a disaster. Everyone will try to be better than the other, but everyone is doing their work. Someone is playing drums, someone is playing guitar, someone is playing violin, everyone has their role. And by having this role, they do it in the best possible way, and they know they are the ones doing it. No one else can do it in that way. Unique space in community. And this is when we have the true power of connection, the true power of relationship, of unity and community. And it's not about who is sacrificing more, or who is louder, or who is this or that. We are in this together. And, let's take responsibility for that. So, when we repeat something, when we fall into the same experience again, because this eclipse may bring us into similar situations that we've been before, especially in these periods of time that I mentioned when the last series of eclipses was happening. And we should see that we needed that experience again. It's not a big deal. We just needed this experience again to recognize something, to remember something. Maybe I'm repeating it because I'm coming back to it as an addict. It can be in this way too. But, something that I need to remember. What do I need to remember? And what do I need to cut? What do I need to remember and what do I need to cut? And, we are about to see this. We are repeating something, always in order to remember something. To remember ourselves, to remember not to do it, or maybe to remember that we have to do it, depending, on the situation. Are we coming back to it as an addict, or are we coming back to it as someone with new perspective who can actually do something with that memory, something constructive? Ego is like a labyrinth. It's a maze, and it's almost without exit. It seems like a labyrinth that has no exit, but I said almost, and just when we think like, okay, now I got it, now I know where is the way out from this labyrinth, boom, we fall again. We find ourselves in the trap again. So we may find ourselves on the same path, we may be walking through the same corridors of this maze again and again, thinking that we haven't been there before because it all seems so similar. And some of us may think we're going crazy because, wow, is this possible? Because I've been here before. I know I've been here before. Or how is it possible that I couldn't remember that I've been here before? So we are walking through this labyrinth. And trust me, it's almost enough just to know that there's a way out of this labyrinth. Sometimes it's enough just to know that there's a way out. And by knowing that there's a way out, this is where we start walking, start being led by our spirit. We start being led by something truer, something that is free from fear. We are being led by that force. This is what happens when we start really knowing, not even believing, but knowing that there's a way out. Even if we don't see it, even if we think that we are far away from it, it's very important just to know that there is a way out. And there is always, always, always a way out. But ego puts us into those traps. So we repeat, we go over the same place. So it's a labyrinth. It is. And, are we going to find that exit? And how many times we are going to repeat the same path, not even knowing we are repeating it? So it's important to remember, to remember who we are. Trust me, you can do it with your eyes closed. We can do it with our eyes closed, because it's not about seeing with these eyes. It's, having that intuition. But intuition comes when we are free from fear. So first, it's very important to observe objectively and to recognize when our fears kick in, when our expectations, our sadness, our need for happiness, whatever kicks in and starts, breathing through us. This is the moment when we can observe and recognize, okay, this is that fear. This is, we can address these moments, and we stop identifying with them. And we see that this is what created our artificial personality that we are defending so much, and that we get lost in others. We get lost into others, Aquarius, and we get lost, Leo. I lost myself, Leo, in others, Aquarius. And new moons hold the potential of beginnings, of imagining, of visioning. They encompass the moment of emptiness in which all potential exists. And it invites us to plant a seed of hope that is rooted in truth and authenticity. You know, it's very, very powerful time for being present, now more than ever. And these eclipses, you know, this is just an introduction into March. March is also very intense because we have another eclipse right at the beginning. This eclipse is full moon lunar eclipse in Virgo. And we will have retrograde Mercury. And now, just 3 days after this eclipse, we have Saturn and Neptune meeting each other. Very, very, very intense time to be alive. And we are breaking away of the old as there is an expansion into the new. But we are also invited to witness that box that has been keeping us confined. And we get to open the door and step through and see what's on the other side. Aquarius and Pisces, the other side. And, you know, break on through to the other side. That song is also pretty much related to Aquarius and Pisces energy. And this is when stagnancy begins to clear and time speeds up and our attention moves away from our past and towards the future, because Aquarius is the future. It's very futuristic. And, you know, we are moving towards liberation and imagination. It asks us to sit with the newness, with the new perspective, and to speak our desires into ether, into the air, Aquarius, and to decide on our path ahead. Aquarius is mentally driven, very much mentally driven, an intellectual thinker who is seeking evolution and revolution. You know, evolution and revolution. It's seeking for freedom. It's the rebel, the revolutionary. And it can be, of course, just as any sign, the negative expression and the positive expression. And these words, negative, positive, are also essentially an illusion, but they exist and we have to discern. You know, if we want a healthy mental perspective, we have to have discernment. And, you know, this is a time when liberation, progress, freedom, authenticity, and individuality will be the forces shaping our desires and our sense of truth. And the Aquarius season invites us to think and to step beyond the known. Aquarius needs space to think. You know, it's a cerebral sign. And we may not know how to express our emotions fully, but we are being taught now. Venus is in Pisces, and Venus is exalted when it's in Pisces, so we can really express our love in an unconditional way towards ourselves. And I always say it's very easy to love ourselves when we are good with ourselves, when nothing bothers us. It's very easy to love ourselves, but the question is, how can we love ourselves when we are ashamed of ourselves, when we are feeling bad about something, when we feel guilty about something, when we are not okay? Can we love ourselves in those moments? Unconditional love for ourselves, for those fears, for those insecurities, for all those things that are pulling us back and pulling us away from being present with who we are. And, you know, planet of love, Venus, wants to bring people together, to bring places and things together. You know, it's the glue of the cosmos. It's desire. You know, it's attractive force that binds. But, you know, it's very powerful to connect with that energy of Venus now. It's very helpful. And this is when this when the apple falls away from the tree on its own, and, you know, because it's mature. This is, you know, happening when we give ourselves unconditional love, and when we don't have the need to search for external help so much. Of course, external help is always necessary, but not if we become addicted to it, not if we see it as only way out, because that's not a way out. That's just support towards the way out, but we are the ones who have to walk through that door. We are the ones who have to find the way out of our own personal maze that has been created by our fears, insecurities, trauma, sadness, all those things that I talked about. And this is, an epic push and pull between energies. And it can leave us emotionally confused, and we are about to see, do we need space from someone? Do we need space from ourselves? Do we need space from work? Do we need space from a partner? Do we need space from family? Do we need space from a friend? Or do they need it from us? Or do we both need it? Or neither of us? But it's very important to see where we are and how we feel with our own space. And, we are about to see where we are intellectualizing our feelings. This is Aquarius, intellectualizing our feelings. But the emotional confusion itself is what happens, during this time. And it can bring objectivity if we are, as I said, training to objectively observe. And, this is, I have to say that no amount of intellectualization can help figure it out. Trust me, no amount of it. And let's not get offended by what's going on now, regardless of what's going on. Use it to find some breathing room. Let's find some breathing room for ourselves, and let's see where it takes us. Let's walk through this labyrinth, and let's remember that the power of community is possible only when we accept ourselves fully, because this is when we can accept others as well, and not getting lost into fighting with our own insecurities and fears through others. But we are about to see our own, let's remember this, our all challenges with others that we are about to have around this time. Let's remember that these are our fears, our insecurities, our expectations, our memories. This is not them. It's something in us that is helping us, that is brought to be seen now, thanks to others. And, let's give ourselves some room to breathe. And let's spend more time in nature, where time stretches, and where we can recognize the path through the labyrinth. And with this, I would end this forecast. And, we will all meet each other eventually at the exit of that labyrinth. And I love you all, and see you in 2 weeks. Bye-bye.